And now that the logistics are out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. I am Sarah Reed from Zendesk, and let's say hello to Ruby from Aramex. Hey, Ruby, how are you?
Hey guys, nice to meet everybody, and thank you for having me today.
Well, it's great to be here. And again, if you're comfortable, please go ahead and turn on your video. We would love to see your smiling faces, and you'll have an opportunity to potentially ask Ruby some questions in person. But Ruby, I have to say you have such a phenomenal background in transportation and logistics. It seems like this is something you've been doing for most of your career. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, since I was a child, so my dad was an ops director back in the 80s. I was only made in the 80s, so I'm still fairly young. And I remember my first job was in logistics during school holidays. I used to capture manual PODs and sit on the two-way radio and dispatch collections to couriers when I didn't have to go to school, which was quite interesting. The world has certainly changed from now to then.
All right, so things have changed in transportation and logistics from then to now, but have you ever seen anything like what we're experiencing right now?
Absolutely not. I think e-commerce specifically has really driven this industry probably 4 or 5 years ahead. So we leaped about 4 or 5 years over the last 12 months. And that's purely down to COVID and people working from home, demand through online shopping. And we've had to catch up with that pace. We scale at around anything between 8 and 15%, depending on a region. We look at a growth, and we saw double-digit growth in 43, 45% in some regions.
And we've been hearing that across, obviously, a lot of industries, is that rapid adoption and rapid acceleration of the things that they had maybe put on their 5-year plan are now coming into fruition today. And so you've had to accelerate what your planning process has been. So let's talk about that for a moment. Are there certain things that you maybe had on your long range planning that suddenly you've had to go ahead and implement today?
Sure, absolutely. So if you sort of look at if you read any papers or any of the financial reviews, you'll look at any logistics segments have had incredible growth. So we brought quite a number of our projects forward. So all of our infrastructure projects came forward so that we could scale server infrastructure, etc. All of our cloud migrations, chat applications. We moved ahead and progressed quite quickly on a lot of how we use Zendesk within our business. And we're a franchise organization. We'll get into that a little bit later today, and how we've leveraged the power of technology to really deal and cope with this volume.
And I believe when you and I were chatting a little bit earlier, you said not only has the shipping volume increased pretty dramatically, but so has your increase in support volume. I believe you told me it's up 44%.
That's correct.
That sound about right? That's a massive amount of support volume coming in. I don't know any organization that would be prepared for unprepared volume of that magnitude. So where is that volume coming from? Like, why are people contacting you right now?
So I'll sort of ask the question back to the group. Is anyone in this group not received a delivery to their door from an e-commerce purchase in the last 12 months? And being a small group, I probably get almost 0 no's in this group, even though it's a small group, because we all have. And we all expect certainty. And if my parcel doesn't arrive on the day that it's promised, I want to get hold of somebody and find out where it is. And it's the IKEA effect. You probably have all felt that where's my parcel scenario at one point in time. And that drives the volume and demand behind our business, especially at a service level.
You're absolutely correct. I decided, I don't know how wisely, but to relocate, buy a house during a pandemic, and then remodel it. And so there have been a lot of things that I've attempted to purchase over the last 6-7 months that either haven't arrived, or they've arrived broken, or just not in their entirety. And so I've probably spent more time talking to customer support than I have in my entire life. So and we're getting some new people joining us. And so I just want to remind everyone, or if you're new, please, if you're comfortable, turn on your video. We're a small group tonight. So we're going to have a pretty candid conversation around transportation and logistics and customer experience and customer support. And we'd also love to just hear from you and any questions that you have from Ruby. Ruby, one of the most fascinating things that you mentioned to me is that more and more people are ordering alcohol, wine to be specific. I am certainly one of them. My wine club subscriptions have gone up pretty dramatically over the last few months. How has that impacted you and your business? And how is that different than, let's say, another retailer that is selling something not alcohol?
Well, so it depends how much of it they've consumed and how happy or angry they'll be when I wine of that. So the wine has shifted our industry quite significantly. So it does actually sort of reduce our capacity per van, which is quite interesting. So where we can put 150 satchels or flyer bags into a van, now we've got 60 cases of wine. So we've had to be really smart in the way that we plan for that. Subscription models are extremely demanding. And those subscription clubs have a very high expectation of delivery. Plus, it's a sensitive product, but it has been a growth market for us. And pet food has been the other one. A lot of people purchased pets over the pandemic. So pet food and alcohol were our two largest growth segments. Pet food, people are very relaxed with. They don't really worry if it's a day or two late. But wine, people are extremely demanding, especially over the holiday season. And again, when we talk about our business, we talk about certainty. People don't mind things being late, but just tell me it's going to be late, or give me an estimated date and try to stick to that promise.
You're making me sound like a statistic here, because not only have my wine subscriptions gone up, but I also just got a puppy. And so now I have 3 corgis that I'm contending with. And yes, we are ordering a lot more food and a lot more toys and a lot more things online. I would say perhaps I'm more patient about their deliveries being late, but I can't say that they're more patient. But fortunately, they can't contact you. So you get a pass with that. So with all this volume, 44% increase in support volume, what did you put in place to help you deal with that? And I'm asking from a process, a people, a technology. What did you have to do in order to support your customers?
So, well, let's start with the people. So we actually didn't really have to scale up our staff. And it was actually really hard to employ people during the pandemic. Australia was actually even more difficult because people had government subsidies. So people weren't really wanting to work, and no one wants to work in call centers at that time. So we had to pivot really quickly, get people to work from home, but use that technology so that they can be more productive with it. So we used a lot of the organizational and the grouping structures that exist within Zendesk. We moved tickets to more senior call center agents versus mid-tier versus low-tier ones. We brought in a chat application, which we've connected directly through to Zendesk. And that blend of chat, having real clear structure, vision, and direction on Zendesk, who handles what types of tickets, when and where. And that allowed us to really scale up quickly and meet those customer demands. And we actually, with the new reporting tools, we've also got a lot more information, and I'm sure we'll sort of get into some of that just now.
All right, so sounds like your channels maybe changed a little bit, more chat volume. And was that a strategic decision on your side because you could handle more volume versus it being a one-to-one interaction over the phone?
Sure. We actually went really deep on the channels. So we actually set up channels at a divisional level. So we have a legal channel. We have now an IT support channel. We even have, for all of our analytics, all of our BR tools, we have a channel. Our pricing team have a channel. Our customer supports have a channel. Our VIP customers have a channel. So we broke all these channels down and really had owners to each of those channels. And it took away email. Email is the death of us. I read a statistic the other day of companies, people receiving over 800 emails a day. When they took out all the CCs, it brought it down to less than 200. And again, we face the same problem. It's death by email. And we have a small project called Kill Bill, which is basically how do we eliminate email completely from our business. So only senior executives over time should have email, everyone else should be working through Zendesk in our organization. And that's sort of our longer term strategy.
All right. So I want to make sure I get that straight. So not only are your customer interactions coming through Zendesk, but also your internal interactions?
Absolutely, yeah. So our franchise inquiries come into Zendesk, and then some of our internal ones. So how do we support our internal channels via Zendesk? And it creates accountability, measurability. It's clean and simple. And again, and I'll keep reiterating it, just no more email, kill Bill.
I am fascinated by this approach. And is this something that you had started to implement before the pandemic, or was this was it directly related to what was going on at that point in time?
We were probably talking about it more as an ideation, and now we're really progressing forward through it because we leapfrogged a few years ahead. So, and it is still a vision, and I believe we can get to that vision. I don't see a need for a lot of staff to have an email address because they don't check it anyways. So they have an email to log into systems, but for productivity point of view, they can actually manage 90% of their work can be managed via
Well, and you're reminding me, I have an 18-year-old stepson, and he never checks his email. He never checks his email, and we're constantly like, did the college send you something? You have to check. And he's like, I don't know. Did the job that you applied for, have you checked your email? Chances are that's how they're going to reach you. And he's like, oh yeah, I haven't done that. So our newer generations are certainly so much more accustomed to communicating through apps and through platforms and any other mechanism than email. So I think you're onto something here. So if it's a vision to move everybody and everything off of email, are you having any dissenters internally or even with your franchises? Is anyone pushing back?
Not really. I think people enjoy it because that allows them to be more productive. Again, and I'll put it back to the rest of the group. How many of you like sitting in front of your email, responding to email? Yet it's one of the first things we do in the morning. So I personally don't enjoy email. And I only ask people to email me if it's important and you need me to respond, because it becomes more of a legal thing now. It's something we can hold to account.
And I'm going to ask a self-serving question, and it's around training people on Zendesk. And we do, by the way, have a few Zendesk folks on the Zoom today. So if you are interested in a Zendesk question, by all means, ask it in the chat or raise your hand, and we may have someone who can help you with that. But Ruby, so now you have to move people off of a channel that they're very used to, and it's let's face it, email doesn't require a ton of training, but now you're asking them to communicate through a platform like Zendesk. And how did you train everybody on that so quickly?
Well, so because we do it at a divisional level, each sort of department head manages it, and not all the departments are on it. So we've done it at very specific ones, and really with our younger teams, our pricing and solutions team, IT team, the analytics team, they're all working through it. And keeping in mind that email is our oldest form of electronic communication now, it is actually older than most of those employees. For them, it's quite natural. They kind of just pick it up straight away because it is the future employee, not really the future of work anymore, I think.
Oh, I'm going to borrow that. It's the future employee, not the future of work. I think there's certainly something to that. But let's talk about the employee now. So increased volume, increased shipping delays, a lot more stress. You and I were talking right before this that we certainly feel that everyone we know, including ourselves, is working longer hours, working more than we did a year ago. How has that impacted morale for your teams?
I think there's two components. I think everyone is actually working harder than they used to. And again, because we've leapfrogged, I think everyone's got to get used to this new normal. I think if we have the right strategy with employees and with our people, you can have this merge between technology and humans, and then find a good balance between it. That's probably one of the first things to look at. And then the second one is just getting people to understand that they don't need to work all day. I certainly don't measure my staff on the hours that they work, but rather by the output. And I think some people do feel, well, because I'm working from home, I probably have to work a little bit harder because I don't want my boss to think that I'm slacking. So it's probably a mix of a lot of things. And we really need to, as leaders in business, we need to show a lot of empathy. And automation in technology can actually allow us to be more empathetic down the line if we use that technology correctly.
All right, so you brought that up. How do you use technology more effectively to increase empathy, or to at least let the empathy come through more effectively?
Okay, it's a good question, not an easy one to answer, but I'll put it down to a story. So if you look at going to see a doctor right now, most of us will book a doctor's appointment and we're lucky to get more than 7 or 8 minutes with the doctor. Imagine a world where, and he writes the script, it's all automated, it's the same process. So if a doctor was an automated process up front, well, here's your symptoms, here's an automated process. A bot could basically, or an AI technology could write you the script, do it, he's just going to sign it off. That's happened in 30 seconds. You've still got 6.5 minutes. That doctor can then just spend the rest of that 6.5 minutes with you and actually have a conversation with you. So it's taking the repetitive tasks out of life, giving you time back, which allows you to be more human, giving a connection between two people, and very simple context. That's sort of how we are trying to approach it. Automate repetitive tasks, give people time back. With that time, use it to build relationships and trust.
And that story is applicable not just in the context that you gave it between a patient and a doctor, but certainly also between us and our employees, and also with our customers. If we take those repetitive tasks out of the way, we have so much more opportunity to actually just create a connection with them.
Absolutely.
And have you found it, like, how do your customers, how have they been responding? Like, I have this theory that early on in the pandemic, many of us companies got what I call a pandemic pass, where customers were a little bit more tolerant of the fact that things were delayed, things were out of stock, people weren't in the office, customer service, hold times were longer. They were waiting for things that they never had to wait before. Things were out of stock that they never had experienced before. And so all of us got that pandemic pass and a little bit more leniency. I believe that is either going away or it's completely gone. And now customers are like, all right, guess what? You've had 10, 11 months to figure this out. So, you better figure it out or I'm going somewhere else. Are you experiencing something similar to that?
Absolutely. It felt like January 1, Planet Earth had a New Year's resolution saying no more excuses for COVID. And that's the truth, because there is no excuse around COVID at all anymore. We've had 11 months to figure this out. Let's start delivering a premium service. And if you look around the world, it doesn't matter what website you go to or what social media platform you go to, every business is talking about customer experience. The two letters CX come up everywhere at the moment, because that is the future. That is in the information age, as we're moving through really quickly now. That is one of the key pillars to that age.
Do you think our expectation of good customer experience will ever go back to pre-pandemic levels?
Absolutely not. Amazon, Nike, some of those big brands have set the bar really high, which is good. I have a high expectation of service. If I'm going to go out for dinner to a nice restaurant, I expect service. If I don't get good service, I'm not going to go back to that restaurant. And that has now translated down into other services, be it delivery services or whatever industry that you're in.
One of the other really innovative things that you've done is allow your merchant partners to also be on Zendesk. And I think that's a rather I think it's unusual. I haven't heard of a use case exactly like this. Can you explain that?
So what we do is we give some of our licenses to some of our key customers. So let's take one of our subscription customers. They're a high volume shipper with us, but they have a very specific way that they want to engage with their customers or respond to their customers should an inquiry come through. So the way we structure, we see them as partners because we're an extension of their business. We just said, that's not a problem. Because you've given us all your delivery volume, here are 5 Zendesk licenses. We set up an organization channel for you. And that allows them to actually respond directly to those customers, which is awesome. So they tick in that box. It cuts out all the middle work for our call centers to sort of direct and who to contact through. And that puts them in touch with one of our depots around Australia or New Zealand. They can just say, where's this parcel? What's happening with this? Please redeliver that. So it's automating the process for us, speeding up the consumer response time, but also allowing our customer, the shipper, to actually get communication across effectively. Because we have 2 customers. We have a shipper and we have a receiver. Quite a unique scenario.
You are in a unique scenario. You have a very B2C situation happening, and obviously a very strong B2B set of relationships in order to get to those end consumers. Did you, with all these ideas that you've had and implemented so effectively, was it challenging to convince the rest of your C-suite to come on board with that?
No, they're pretty progressive. We're a very small team, so across Australia and New Zealand, there's only 6 of us, so decisions get made really quickly. And we are trying to build a great business, and we want to be a great employer, but we also want to be a good business. We've invested into our brand, and we have to put our money where our mouth is.
Well, do you have any advice for individuals who may be working for companies that potentially aren't as progressive as the rest of your C-suite? How would you help them pass along the notion of that impact of a less than ideal customer experience and that impact that it has on the rest of the company?
Sure. I think if you really believe in something and it's the right thing to do, you just got to keep driving it, man. Like, just keep on knocking on the door. So be a nag. That's what I do. So just like, if I really believe in something, I'm pretty much going to do it. And if they don't let me do it, I'll make it a secret project and then we do it anyways. So.
Well, at Zendesk, we would call you a champion of customer experience, because that's exactly what you are by knocking on that door as often as you need to in order to get that message across. All right, so you've already told us that customer experience isn't going back to normal or going back to pre-pandemic levels. Do you think, just out of curiosity, that our method of shopping, e-commerce, is that ever going to go back when countries and states and cities open up to full capacity again?
No, I think generationally, younger generations shop by default online. And again, they're statistics, but they say once you've shopped online 3 times, you're more than likely to remain there. And I think most individuals will shop online a few times a year by chance anyways, or at least every household will shop online, be it buying some pet food or whatever it is. So that will never change. People have just said, oh, it's actually not that bad. Let me just use this platform to do it. So because it's just increased adoption rates online and e-commerce.
And so what that means, though, is none of us can rest on our laurels and expect things to go back to the way they were, or just feel that we can ride this out. It's really now about making those investments so that you don't fall behind in the long run.
I think it's a great time to be alive because we've never been given so many challenges in life. I think as leaders or as technology specialists, we get into technology because we're problem solvers. That's why most people do maths or science. And this is one of the greatest leadership problems and company problems we've been faced with. So otherwise, we might as well go sit on a beach in Bali, which would be nice for 2 or 3 weeks, but then we'd probably be bored.
I think that all of us, well, we are recording this, that all of us are going to need to have that mantra and, push it out to our teams whenever people are feeling a little overwhelmed or a little stressed with all the new decisions and choices we're having to make right now, because it is a very fascinating time to be making leadership decisions. So speaking of, where are your big investments for 2021? Now that you've accelerated all this adoption, what's left for you to do?
Oh, there's a long way to go. It's just because we've accelerated, it doesn't mean that we finished it. So I think we're really at the beginning of our journey. These volumes will continue to grow. Yes, they will level off at a point, but it's about those 1% improvements. So, and I think we've got a long way. So our Kill Bill project of getting reduced email will continue until we get to a place that we think that's sustainable and it's the right thing for our employees. And just keep investing in technology. Giving customers choice is probably the number one piece of advice that I give to any of our teams, especially the younger generations coming through. They want to use a mobile device, and technology is changing, whether it be WeChat, Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, or Google Messenger, etc., etc. These are going to keep coming in, and we need to be across those and give our customers their choice how to communicate with us and how to amend or change their deliveries or service options with us. We shouldn't force it down to them. So the future for us is how do we give customers choice, and that investments in research and what we do will that will drive our future and our future success.
And going back to your earlier point, if we're building that agility and that flexibility into our processes now, that no matter what that next channel comes in or that next big disaster recovery scenario, we're better prepared for that than we were before. And we can move much more quickly in that adoption. So last question before we go, because believe it or not, our 30 minutes is up. I told you this would go so quickly. What's one Zendesk tip or trick or maybe even service product solution that you'd want to recommend that's made a big impact on you and your business?
There are quite a few. I think the new reporting suite is really, really great. It's definitely a massive upgrade from the previous reporting suite. And we're definitely spending a lot of time within Explore to really say, how do we get information about our customers? Because if you've got good data coming in, we can actually use those for insights to make much better decisions for our customers. So data isn't about mining data. For us, it's about making decisions now.
And I would also expect that all that great data is also helping you make better decisions with your distributed workforce that you now have. And we as leaders can really use that data to make good decisions for our employees and our customers.
Absolutely.
Well, that is it for today. And I want to thank you, Ruby, so much for sharing your expertise. And thank you for being one of those champions of customer service. We need more like you. And thank you to everyone for sharing a moment with us. We have many more exciting conversations coming your way over the next few months. So please be on the lookout for those. And in the meantime, please stay connected with each other and with the Zendesk community, and be safe, be helpful, and we'll all chat again soon. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.